Why does the Leaning Tower of Pisa tilt, but never fall? Could it be magic? Maybe a secret no one knows yet? Stick around as we dive into the strange and dramatic story behind one of the world's most famous structures. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more mind-blowing answers. A Tower of Pride. When construction began in 1173, the idea was simple. Pisa wanted to show off its power and wealth. Back in the Middle Ages, cities were often in fierce competition, and Pisa was no different. The original plan for the tower was quite ambitious. Standing at nearly 185 feet tall, it would have been an impressive architectural masterpiece. But little did the builders know that something was lurking beneath their feet, something that would change the tower's destiny forever. Trouble beneath the surface. You see, the foundation of any building is crucial. It's the base that supports the entire structure. But when it came to the Tower of Pisa, there was a big problem with the soil. The ground beneath Pisa isn't solid rock like in some other places. It's made of soft clay, sand, and shells, which shifts over time. This type of soil is unstable, and when you try to build something heavy on top of it, it can move, sink, or even tilt. This is exactly what happened to the Tower of Pisa. Within just a few years of starting construction, the tower began to lean. Imagine the builders' shock as they noticed the structure tilting ever so slightly to one side. Why didn't they fix it? At this point, you might be wondering, if the tower started leaning so early, why didn't they just fix it? Great question! There are a few theories about this. Lack of knowledge about the soil. The builders in the 12th century didn't have the technology or knowledge to fully understand the soil beneath them. They knew something was wrong, but they didn't grasp the magnitude of the problem. They tried to counteract the lean by building the tower taller on one side, but this only made things worse. Political pressure. Pisa was in competition with other powerful cities like Florence and Genoa. The city's leaders were in a rush to finish the tower and showcase their wealth and influence. Because of this pressure, they kept pushing forward, even though the tower was already showing signs of trouble. A lucky break? After realizing the tower was leaning, construction was paused several times. These delays turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Why? Because the longer the tower sat unfinished, the more time the ground had to settle and stabilize. If the builders had rushed to complete it, the entire tower might have collapsed long ago. The pauses in construction gave the soft soil time to compress under the weight of the structure, which helped to slow down the lean. A curse or a miracle? As the tower's lean became more pronounced, stories and legends began to swirl around it. Some people whispered that the tower was cursed, that it was never meant to be finished. Others believed that it was a miracle, proof that divine forces were keeping the structure from toppling over. In the Renaissance period, some mathematicians and architects were so baffled by the tower's survival that they wondered if there was something magical about its design. Could the builders have secretly known a way to make it stay upright despite the odds? Or was the tower's continued existence just pure luck? Why doesn't it fall? At this point, you might be asking yourself, why hasn't the Leaning Tower of Pisa fallen over? The answer lies in the science of center of gravity. Every object has a center of gravity, which is the point where the weight is evenly distributed in all directions. For most buildings, the center of gravity is directly above the base, keeping it stable. In the case of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, the center of gravity is slightly off due to the tilt, but it's still within the base of the tower. This means that, despite the lean, the tower's weight is still balanced enough to prevent it from toppling over. Leaning buildings around the world. The Leaning Tower of Pisa isn't the only leaning structure in the world. In fact, there are several other buildings that have experienced similar problems due to unstable soil. For example, the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Germany leans even more than the Tower of Pisa. And in San Francisco, the Millennium Tower began sinking and leaning soon after it was completed due to poor foundation work. Strange and fun facts about the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Galileo's gravity experiment. According to legend, the famous scientist Galileo Galilei once dropped 2 cannonballs of different weights from the top of the Leaning Tower of Pisa to prove that objects fall at the same speed regardless of their mass. While there's no concrete evidence this experiment took place, it's become one of the most popular stories associated with the tower. The lean isn't uniform. Did you know the tower actually leans in a curve? The builders tried to compensate for the tilt by adding more weight to one side as they constructed the upper levels, resulting in a slight curve at the top. It wasn't always so famous. Believe it or not, the Leaning Tower of Pisa wasn't always as famous as it is today. It wasn't until the 19th century that it became a global icon. Thanks in part to tourists and artists who are fascinated by its unusual lean. The tilt reaches a crisis point. To prevent this disaster, authorities closed the tower to the public in 1990, and an international team of engineers was called in to stabilize it. The solution needed to be both scientific and artistic. After all, the Leaning Tower of Pisa is famous for its tilt. Saving it without losing its unique angle was the ultimate challenge. Saving the Leaning Tower. The Tower of Pisa's lean was getting worse over the centuries, and by the 20th century, it became clear that something had to be done. If not, this iconic piece of history was in danger of falling. The tower, after leaning for hundreds of years, was tilting at a dangerous 5.5-degree angle, and people feared the worst. Engineers and scientists from all over the world joined forces to solve this age-old puzzle. The ultimate solution. In the end, the team of engineers settled on a clever combination of techniques to stabilize the tower. They used a process called soil extraction, where they removed small amounts of soil from beneath the higher side of the tower. This allowed the ground to settle and gently reduce the tilt. It was a delicate process, requiring extreme precision to avoid causing the tower to collapse. Over the course of several years, they managed to reduce the tilt by about 1.5 degrees, bringing it to a safer angle. The Leaning Tower's rescue drama. The rescue mission wasn't without its dramatic and suspenseful moments. Imagine working on one of the most famous buildings in the world, knowing that one wrong move could bring it crashing down. During the soil extraction process, there were a few tense moments where the tower shifted more than expected, causing the engineers to hold their breath. But thanks to their careful planning and quick thinking, disaster was avoided. The lean lives on. After years of careful work, the tower was reopened to the public in 2001, and the tilt was safely reduced to about 3.97 degrees. While it's still leaning, the tower is now stable enough to stand for many more centuries. In fact, experts believe it will remain safe for at least another 200 years before any further intervention is needed. This rescue mission was hailed as a major success, and the Leaning Tower of Pisa continues to attract millions of visitors each year, eager to see one of the world's most famous architectural quirks. That's the strange and suspense-filled story behind the Leaning Tower of Pisa. But now we want to hear from you. What mysteries of the world keep you up at night? Maybe there's a question that pops into your mind in the middle of the night or while you're brushing your teeth in the morning. Drop it in the comments, and who knows, we might answer it in our next episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more weird and wonderful secrets.